Single crochet. It is the must-know stitch when it comes to the world of crochet. From making amigurumi plushies to beautifully textured garments, you will definitely need to know this stitch if you plan on crocheting anything. Hello, my Munifam, or welcome to our big happy crafty family if you're brand new around here. This is episode 5 of Learn to Crochet here on my channel. This episode is all about the single crochet, which I am so excited for because it is a very, very important stitch in the world of crochet, especially if you're interested in amigurumi like I am. I love making amigurumi, which is the adorable little crocheted plushies. You pretty much single crochet all day, every day when making those, paired with increases and decreases, and that is how you form the adorable little plushies that you see me make. So this is a very important stitch, not only if you want to make amigurumi, but if you want to make anything crochet related. The single crochet is the foundation upon which you will build your crochet knowledge, and you're going to learn all about how to do it right now today. Before I show you how to single crochet, I want you guys to become familiar with what it looks like in a little piece of swatch. So this is what it looks like. You can see that there are obviously rows and there are stitches making up these rows. If you were to look at this with an untrained eye, you may not be able to tell how many rows are here, but there are actually 10. So an easy way to count this is by looking at these more prominent lines in the work right here. You can see them here, and count by twos. So we go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There are 10 rows in this piece of work. If you want to count the individual rows, it's a little bit more difficult, but still doable. And it gets easier the more you work with single crochet. So here is the first row with these bumps kind of sticking out, and because we're going back and forth in different directions, the rows look different from one another because this row was going one direction and the next row was going the other direction. So here is one row right here, here is the second one, here is the third one, here's the fourth, here's the fifth, the sixth, the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th, and the 10th. But I do find it easier to just count based off of these more prominent lines that you can see. So in groups of 2. On the top of the swatch, you will see that the V's here look very similar to a chain. So these little V's signify one single crochet stitch. So to count how many stitches you have in a row, you will count how many little complete sets of V's you have. So in this swatch, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, because there are 20 V's on top. So there are 20 stitches across and 10 rows down. So that is how big this swatch is. You are free in this video to make any size swatch you want. The numbers I give here are just a guideline if you want to follow along exactly what I'm doing here. So that is the anatomy of a little single crochet swatch. You can see it has some give to it. When you pull on it, you can see through it. There are holes. It is pretty stretchy, but the holes are not too big. And if we size down our hook, these holes would be even smaller. So that is why when you see amigurumi, I'm going to grab my little needle holder here. The stitches are very tight, and so when I pull on it, you can't see holes in between because I used a way smaller hook to make this little guy right here. When it comes to a wearable, something you want to be soft and have some drape and fold to it, you do want it to be a little bit looser stitch, because if we stitch this super tight, it wouldn't have any give and it also wouldn't drape around the body nicely. So it honestly just depends on what you're making. If you're making a scarf, you want it to drape. And if you're making an amigurumi, you probably want it to very stiffly hold its shape. So this is what it looks like. I just wanted you guys to get an idea of what we're going for here today. And now I'm going to teach you how to do it. To get started, I hope you still have your size 4 worsted weight yarn and a 5mm crochet hook. It doesn't have to be the same hook as me. It can be any hook. And I hope you've been practicing the chain and your tension and all of that, because you're going to need to put all of that knowledge together today when making your single crochet swatch. So that is how we're going to start off. I'm just going to have you guys make swatches. And if you really want to go far with it, then you are more than welcome to just extend the swatch into a giant rectangle and then call it a scarf. That's pretty much what a scarf is. It's just a big, long rectangle swatch. So I'm just going to have you guys make a single crochet swatch, and you can keep it for reference on what a single crochet stitch looks like, or you can just undo it at the end if you don't want to waste your yarn, or you can even just keep going and make yourself a big long scarf. So I hope you remember how to make a slip knot. I hope you remember how to chain, and I hope that you figured out a way that you would like to hold your hook and your yarn in your hand, because you're going to need to combine all of those things when we're working with the yarn today. So I want you guys to go ahead and make a slip knot in whatever way that you have learned how to do it. I showed 3 different methods in a previous episode if you need that. But go ahead and make a slip knot, and you want to leave yourself a bit of a tail. It doesn't have to be too long. It doesn't have to be too short. I'm not concerned with exact measurements, but just leave yourself a decent sized tail. Remember, the tail is the piece that is cut, and the working yarn is the piece of yarn that ends up attached to the rest. It is important to note that the single crochet that we're learning here today is in US terms. Single crochet does not exist, I don't think, in UK terms, and the same stitch in UK terms is called double crochet. So depending on where you're from, this is either a single crochet or a double crochet. That is very confusing because in the US American terms for crochet, a double crochet stitch is something completely different. So be sure, if you're looking at a pattern or you're watching a video tutorial and they say double crochet, if it's in UK terms, that means single crochet. And single crochet means single crochet in US terms. Just for reference, for the rest of this series, I will be teaching in US crochet terms. Okay, I'm not super knowledgeable with UK stuff because I'm not from the UK. What is important to know is that you're learning the single crochet today in US terms. Don't worry about anything else for now. All right, so make your slip knot and get your yarn on your hook. If you want to know what hook I'm using, it is linked below. It's my lovely Furls Odyssey hook that I love so dearly. Highly recommend. After you make your slip knot and get your yarn attached to your hook, go ahead and wind the yarn through your fingers on your non-dominant hand or your left hand if you're right-handed, in whatever way you found the most comfortable from the tensioning your yarn episode. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a chain, and that is going to serve as the foundation that we're going to go back into as we're making our first row of single crochets. So to get started with your single crochet swatch, and before you learn how to single crochet, you're going to need to chain 21 chains. And the way that you count your chains, if you lose track as you're making them, is by counting the little V's that are in the chain that is attached to your hook. So if we take a look at what I've made here so far, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have a chain 5 attached to the hook. We do not count this loop that is around the hook. We only count the completed V's. And you're going to want to keep doing this until you make 21, because we're going to have 20 stitches in our swatch plus an extra chain 1 on the end that is going to help us turn and go back down the row of single crochets. So we're going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and make a swatch. Okay, so what I want you to do now is go ahead and chain 21 chains attached to your hook. Be sure to be on the lookout for your tension. Your chains should not be too tight. You should be able to easily pull your hook through the chains. If it's too tight and you cannot do that, you need to take a look at my tension video and adjust your tension. And make sure that your chains are not too loose either. They want to look nice and even, and that way you're going to have a nice solid foundation for you to start your single crochet swatch. So go ahead and do that. Take as much time as you need and make 21 chains attached to your hook. All right, so once you've done that, you should have something that looks similar to this with 21 evenly tensioned chains that is still connected to your hook. Don't cut anything off yet. Your tail should be at the end here, and your working yarn should still be attached to the rest of your yarn. So cool. Now what? How do we single crochet? Well, what's going to happen is this is the bottom of our swatch, and we are going to go back and forth to grow a piece of fabric using the single crochet stitch. So what's going to happen now is we're going to go back down the line and single crochet into each of these chains here, and then do it again, but into the top of the first row of single crochets, and again and again and again and again, and eventually you'll have a pretty decent sized little square of fabric. So what I like to do when single crocheting back into a chain is crocheting into the back bump. And there's a couple of reasons for that. If we refer back to the anatomy of a chain, on the front side, you will have these little V stitches, and on the back, you have these extra little bumps. When I single crochet back into a chain of stitches, I like to do it into the back bump. And the reason being is when you finish your work, these nice V's are going to end up on the edge. You will also see people teach you to single crochet into the side of one of these V's, so catching one of these stitches here, and that is perfectly fine. It just all comes down to how you want the edge to look on your finished piece. And another reason is if I'm making a piece or an item that requires sewing, I find it much easier and look much cleaner if I have these V's on the bottom of my work as well. So all that to say, this is preference for me, and this is the way that I'm going to teach you, but you will see people teach it another way as well. Either way is perfectly fine and will get you the same results. The only difference is going to be how the edge of your work looks. So this is what I prefer because I think it makes a cleaner, nicer looking edge. So that is the way that I'm going to teach you today. So you're going to pick up your yarn and your hook again, and what you're going to do is you're going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook. Not counting this loop that is touching the hook and around the hook, we're going to count the second chain. So here's the first one right here. It might be getting pulled kind of funky, but here's the first one, and here is the second one. So we're going to flip that over and find the bumps right here on the back side of those stitches, and we're going to single crochet into the second bump away from the hook. So here is the first one. Here is the second one. It might be kind of difficult to see, but with some practice, you will start to be able to scout out those parts much more easily. But here is the first bump, and here is the second one. And we are going to start our single crochet right into the second bump. So, single crochet. Are you ready? All you're going to do is you're going to insert your hook into that bump. And this is more difficult on the first row than it is in the next rows. And that is because you're trying to finagle your hook into this little tiny strand of fabric, and it's just kind of hard to get your fingers to hold on to it. So you're going to insert your hook into that back bump like so. And it's okay if you need to use your fingers to guide it onto your hook. That is completely normal. After you do that, you're going to yarn over. Remember, just pass the yarn from the back to the front, and you're going to pull up a loop through that back bump. At this point, you should have 2 loops on your hook. When you were chaining, you went ahead and you pulled this loop through the second loop, but we're not going to do that this time. This is a single crochet, so we're actually going to yarn over again, rotate our hook downwards, and pull through both of those loops that were on our hook. And this is a single crochet. It doesn't look like much yet, but I promise it will start to look really, really nice. And it's okay that this bump is getting stretched out like that a little bit. It will even out the more you grow your swatch. All right, so let's find the next bump. So here's the V's. Turn it to the back, and here is the next bump. I see it right there. If it's really hard for you to find those bumps, you might have made too tight of a chain. So if that's the case, then just go back, rework your chain with a looser tension. I recommend putting your finger on this loop that's on the hook so it doesn't fall off, and then insert your hook into that bump. You might have to use your fingers to kind of help the hook go through there. Then you're going to yarn over, bring the yarn from behind to the front, yarn over, pull a loop through that bump, and you have 2 loops on your hook. At this point, you're going to yarn over again, rotate your hook. So we rotate it because it's a lot harder to pull through if you don't rotate it. So if you don't rotate it, you're just going to be hooking onto those loops that are already on your hook. So if you yarn over and rotate it down, it glides much more smoothly through those loops that are on your hook. So we just continue the process like that. Insert your hook into the next bump, yarn over, pull up a loop. You should have 2 on your hook, then yarn over and pull through both of those 2 loops. All the while, you're going to be using your left hand or your non-dominant hand to hold onto the chain and stabilize it for you to work into. And I use my pointer finger on my right hand, my dominant hand, the hand that's holding my hook, to hold this loop on the hook so it doesn't just like boop, slip right off. So there's a lot going on here. Just take it easy and do it very, very slowly and try to make sure that your hands and your fingers are in the right place. All right, so find the next bump, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a second loop, like so, then yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So if I kind of stretch this out, you'll start to see I've been single crocheting back into that chain. And because we went into the back bumps, we have a nice clean V edge on the bottom that I think just looks really, really neat. I will, for demonstrational purposes, show you as well what it looks like if you crochet into the side of the V. So you will go into not the bump, but just one edge of the V and just single crochet the same way. You're just doing it into a different spot, and let me show you the difference it makes on the edge. Okay, so here is the difference. It may be hard to the untrained eye to see, but over here on the edge we have these nice clean V's, and over here we just have one little edge. To me, I think that this looks more clean and it looks more normal to the rest of the fabric. This, having the V's on the bottom, matches what the top looks like. See, we have V's on the top, and having them on the bottom just makes it look more uniform. Whereas over here, we have the V's on the top, and then we just have this one kind of loop on the edge on the bottom. So honestly, it's all personal preference. I like to give you guys options and tell you about different ways just in case something else makes more sense to you. This is just personal preference. So go as slow as you need to go, guys, until this makes sense to you. You want to make sure that your tension is good, nothing's too tight. You shouldn't have to be forcing your hook into your piece here, okay? It shouldn't be really difficult. And one of the most common mistakes for beginner crocheters and people that are new to the hobby is that their tension is way too tight. And the way that you'll know if this is you is if you're sitting here trying to put your hook into the back bump and you're like trying to shove it in there, and you're having to take your nails and push it on there. that means, my friend, that your tension is too tight. It should be fairly easy to insert your hook into that bump. You may need to guide it a little bit with your fingers, but it shouldn't be forceful by any means. So go ahead and do this until you get to the end of your 21 chain. And if it turns out looking funny and you feel like you did something wrong, don't worry, guys. Crochet is very easy to dial it back and undo. Just pull the working end of the yarn and go back to the spot that you want to reset and go back to, and just continue on from there until you are happy with the way that your first row looks. So you're going to want to single crochet all the way to the end of your chain 21 until the last final bump, and I will show you what that looks like. And if you're counting, you should actually have 20 stitches. So the last bump is going to look like this. It might be a little more tricky to see because it is the very last one, but you should have your V on the bottom and then your last bump right here. Go right on into that, and that should be your 20th stitch. And the way that you check and count is give it a little stretch, straighten it out a little. It might be wanting to curl up on you. That is okay. That's completely normal. So give it a little tug, and it should look a little something like this. This is your first row of single crochet. I'm so proud of you. Look at you go. So the way that you tell is you're going to want to count how many stitches there are, and it's very similar to counting the chains. So we're going to want to count each of the little sets of V's on top. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 is going to be a little hard to find because it's being pulled down a little bit, but it is right here on the end. So we have 20 total stitches going into our chain. It may seem annoying to have to count all the time, but that's like half of crochet is just counting all the time. So I hope you like to count. All right, so count your V's, make sure it looks like this and there's nothing that looks off, and make sure that you have 20 stitches. And I'm going to show you how to turn and start your next row. All right, to end our first row of single crochets and start our second row, we're going to chain 1. And the reason why we do this is because we need to get up to the height of a single crochet to start doing our second row. So go ahead, yarn over and pull through the loop that's on your hook, and you chained 1. After you've done that, you are going to turn because we're going to start going the other direction down our little swatch. So flip your work over, and once you do that, you should have your hook at the right side of your work and your work facing this way, because we're going to go down the line and make our second row of single crochets. So you do your 20 single crochets, chain 1 to get up to height, and then turn. All right. After you turn, you are ready to start crocheting. Go ahead and start by inserting your hook into that very first stitch that is right underneath your chain right there. So here is your chain, and then here is your stitch. And a stitch is made up of these little V's on top. So you see these 2 V's, and then there's kind of like a hole underneath. That is where we're going to insert our hook. All right. So same thing, just inserting our hook into a different place. So insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through the 2 that are on your hook, and do it again. So you see these little V's, and there's a little hole here, a little gap, and that is where we're inserting our hook into, right there. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over and pull through 2. This shouldn't be super tight. It shouldn't be super loose. We should have a pretty easy to work with tension here. And make sure that when you insert your hook, you're going underneath 2 strands of yarn, both sides of that V. If you go under just one, it's going to cause it to look funny. So please, please, please pay attention and make sure you're inserting your hook into the right place, because it's very easy to just catch one of those V's instead of both. Make sure you're going under both of them right there. So just continue like this and count and do 20 stitches back down the line. Take care not to twist your work and accidentally start working down the bottom of it. Make sure that you're just going straight back down the first row that you made, and go as slow as you need to go to get it down and get your muscles to remember it. All right, we've gotten to almost the end of our row, but we need to make sure that we catch this last stitch here. It may be kind of sloping down. So we're going to go into that and just do our last single crochet. So when you get to the end of your row, first count and make sure you have 20 stitches and you didn't lose any. Then just chain 1 to get up to the right height, and then turn your work and go back down the row. Make sure that you are yarning over and not under, okay? Yarning under is certainly a tactic in crochet, but we're not using that yet. So when you insert your hook, make sure you're passing the yarn from behind the hook, furthest away from you, to the front. And then you rotate your hook downwards, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. And make sure you're not passing the yarn underneath your hook like that, okay? So make sure you're inserting your hook, yarning over, and continue as normal. And you want to make sure that you are achieving 20 stitches on each row. If you don't get all the stitches, then your work will start to shrink and turn into a triangle and not a square swatch. So that is how you single crochet, and just continue to do that and build up a nice square swatch of material until it feels really comfortable and natural to you. So just go up and down the line, making sure that you have 20 stitches on each row. We don't want to lose any stitches, and making sure to chain 1 on the ends when you turn and start a new row. So that's pretty much it. That is how you single crochet. I will teach you guys how to increase and decrease and do more complex shapes in a future video. But what I want you guys to do is just keep practicing single crochet, going back and forth, and make a little square swatch of fabric. That way you can practice, get your muscle memory down, and if you would like, keep that swatch of fabric for future reference to show you what a single crochet looks like. And so you will be able to visually compare it and tell the difference and things like that. I just think it's cool. We won't cut this piece off. We won't cut this swatch off when we learn other stitches like half double crochet or double crochet or treble crochet. When we learn those other stitches, we're just going to continue on this same swatch so that you will just have a rectangle of fabric that is an example to you of what each of the stitches look like. It doesn't matter how many rows you do, just keep going until you feel like stopping. It really doesn't matter. If you really, really want and you feel super ambitious, you can just keep going and make a scarf for Christmas for your mom. I'm sure she'll love it. But that's all for today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. If not, I'm very sorry. I invite you guys to join my online crafty community that exists over on Discord, and get involved and follow me on other social medias. And please don't forget to subscribe to this video and like it on your way out. If you're liking this series, please let me know in the comments, or if you have any questions and would like any further clarification on something, you never know. I might just make a whole other video to help you out. So let me know, guys, if you need anything. I am here to help. I would love, love, love to continue teaching you guys how to crochet, and I can't wait to see what you guys make. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon. Stay crafty. Have a great day. Bye!